what, as of today, do you think it is safe for us to say about time restricted eating and its utility for human health? And what do you think are the remaining gaps where we have some hypotheses, but we need future research to kind of help tease things out a little bit more?
Yes, I think the general finding is one, it seems to be safe. I think that's one important thing. There have yet to see any serious adverse effects in shorter than 8 hour eating windows. So it does seem to be safe even for those who have type 2 diabetes. So I think that's been an exciting finding to know that this is something that people can do, at least within adults. There hasn't been much done in children yet. I think the other thing is that we have seen across the board in most studies that if you do have compromised glucose regulation, that this can be an effective way to help improve your glucose regulation, even if you're not losing large amounts of weight, even if you don't change your diet. Now, not that you shouldn't. I think these are complementary things. But I see time restricted eating as a healthy component of eating. It's not just what and how much, but also when you eat, it's going to control how your body processes that food and how that food is going to affect your overall health. I think there's a lot of interesting work to be done in the cardiometabolic field and in the inflammation field. So in things such as cancers and how people are going to be able to respond to that. As far as cardiometabolic, there's been mixed findings on cholesterol and triglycerides. And I think some of them have not been maybe sophisticated enough tests. I think if you get into other type of lipo profiles where you can see breakdowns of different types of cholesterol, there might be some interesting things there, or even inflammation around arteries that could change prognosis. So I think there's more to be done in that field to really understand the cardiovascular benefits. But I think I've seen a lot of evidence to show that you can really improve glucose regulation by just simply controlling the timing of when you eat. And so I think that's where we can take it now, and then moving that into more cardiovascular as well as inflammation fields to see how it can help those diseases. And then the thing that's very hard to test is how it could be used preventatively, how it could be part of a healthy lifestyle for anyone to implement to potentially, hopefully, at least delay the onset of chronic disease.
Yeah, and I'll say from my perspective, I think we're a little further away from public health recommendations. So what we need are either larger meta-analyses, or we need like the one large definitive study, with hundreds of participants where we demonstrate, that time-restricted eating has benefits for weight loss. That's probably the number one thing that people want to know. And we will need something like that before we can make public health recommendations, with the field being mixed, about 50-50. Unfortunately, no dietary guidelines committee is going to recommend TRE yet. They probably want to see a randomized controlled trial, not just a meta-analysis showing there's an effect. I will say recently we just completed a study, and we were estimating the effect in terms of not only the weight loss, but sort of calories per day that it reduces how much you eat by. And we found about a 236 calorie difference. So that's not necessarily a large effect, but I still call that a modest to moderate effect. So I would also say we also need to kind of characterize the size of the effect. Now, it's very easy to say that, but as I think Emily did such a good job earlier explaining how different study designs can lead to different effects, right? If we ask people to eat in a 6-hour window, they're probably going to eat less than if it's a 10-hour window, right? So just also understanding, what are the optimal fasting durations that, what fasting durations produce what size of a weight loss benefit, which fasting durations can people stick with, what times of day can people stick with. And one study that my lab is doing is we're actually comparing early versus middle of the day time-restricted eating in the setting of a controlled feeding study. So do we see, what's the relative benefit of early versus later in the day, and kind of teasing apart what people can do. And then the last thing is having longer trials, right? So we need studies now that, follow people out for a full year.